Hello again, this is John Wild, here to give you another look at vintage action figures. Well, this time it isn't really a vintage action figure, this is a retro action figure from MEGO Toys. Yeah, that's right, MEGO is back. In July of 2018, MEGO came back to the store shelves, and with it they brought Action Jackson. Yes, the original Action Jackson from the 1970s. So today, let's look at the new release, Action Jackson. Looking back at time at Action Jackson, we'll see what Action Jackson was all about back in its original run. As you can see on the right, you have a vintage action figure in his window box. And what you did was you bought the standard Action Jackson figure, and then, as you can see on the left, there was accessory packs that you would purchase that you would change the outfit of Action Jackson to turn him into all sorts of different characters. You know, there was Army, there was sports, and there was adventure characters. Plus he came with some vehicles and small accessory packs. So this line was basically a model of G.I. Joe and a cheaper alternative to G.I. Joe. So let's look at the new Action Jackson in 2018. This release of Action Jackson is more of a throwback to the original. He comes on a card like many of the MEGOs did back in the 1970s, but he is considered a TV favorite. That's what it says in the top corner, and I'd imagine that's because of the commercials. Now, MEGO, when they aired the commercials back in the early 1970s, were cited by the United States government for using cartoons in their advertising. There was too much cartoon and not enough toy. See, back then, there had to be a certain amount of time with the actual product and a certain amount of time with the cartoon, and it was measured, and people watched these things. So MEGO had gotten into trouble because their cartoon was too long and their product was too short. So they had to pull the ads. Once they pulled the ads, the action figure line somewhat declined. But it continued on into the mid-70s in various different guises, and it was also released in Europe as Johnny Jackson, and I believe it was also released in other countries too. So if you know what those countries are, leave them in the comments. Say what Action Jackson was called in your country. For the 2018 re-release of Action Jackson, we see on the bottom that there's this pop sticker on the bottom. You know, it's foil and it's very sparkly, and it says Marty Abrams presents MEGO, and it has a number at the bottom. The number's important because they're only releasing 10,000 of these figures. Yep, that's right, 10,000 of these figures. The one that's in my collection is 6,004. So on the back of the card, we see a vintage Action Jackson, right? That's definitely a vintage Action Jackson. He's got the powder blue jumpsuit on, plus he's wearing a dog tag. And it says that Action Jackson Classic, right? Officially licensed, detailed 8-inch character, authentic repro style packaging, pose figure in any action position, original MEGO toy line and quality, limited edition, numbered for collectability, and collect them all. And it also has a little bit of trivia. Where did MEGO get the name Action Jackson? And the answer is from Phil Jackson, the coach of the New York Knicks. Taking the figure out of the package, we see in the top corner the logo that Action Jackson used to have, and it said "Do or Dare, he's everywhere," and it had an American eagle kind of holding on to the ribbon. It also has 2 word bubbles, and the word bubbles are very important because that is the theme song to Action Jackson. It says, "Action Jackson is my name, bold adventure is my game." Here we have a look at the original Action Jackson, and you see "Do or Dare, he's everywhere." So that logo has somewhat transitioned over into the 2018 series. So getting a good overall look at the figure out of the packaging, there's a few things that I have to note right off the get-go. So as soon as I picked the figure up, I felt the weight of the figure. And the weight of these new MEGO figures, the 2018 MEGOs, is definitely more substantial than the original series. They feel like they're sturdier, and they feel like the quality of the plastic is very good. So that is great on MEGO's part that they have done that. The head sculpt is a little bit smaller than the original Action Jackson. So here we have an original Action Jackson next to a 2018 release. You can see the heads are just a little bit, the new one is a little bit smaller, possibly to make the mold to make the heads for the new Action Jackson. They had to use an old head. looking down the figure, we can see side-by-side comparison here that the jumpsuit is similar in color. Obviously the vintage jumpsuit has quite a bit of age to it and patina, so it may have originally been this color. The Action Jackson logo on this example is a sewn-in patch style Action Jackson logo, and it's a bit bigger than the new representation here, so a little bit new, but it's still good quality. I'm not complaining about that at all. I think it's very good. Has the same style of belt with the elastic band and the metal buckle. And moving down to the bottom of the figures, we could see that the boots are most likely recasts of the original boots, which is really pretty interesting. So as for a representation of an original Action Jackson, I say they nailed it spot on. So let's take a look at the accessory piece. So here we have two original MEGO pistols. Right, that's right. I know it's hard to say. It's funny for me even to say it that there's new MEGOs out there. But yes, there are new pieces to the MEGO. So on the right we have the original pistol that came with one of the outfits. And on the left we have the 2018 pistol that came with the single carded figure. So we could definitely see there is a clear difference between the vintage and the new. And I've always felt that the vintage line pistol was pretty weak, so the new 2018 pistol is definitely an upgrade. So now that we looked at the accessory, let's look at the new body that MEGO is giving us. And it looks a heck of a lot like the bodies that they used to give us right off the get-go. Have to say that clearly they're very inspired off of the original. The arms will articulate out all the way. And this is the one problem that I'm having with any of these figures. If we look on the corner of the shoulders, here we are at the shoulder, and you can see that they've extended out where the hook hits the O-ring that goes to the body. Now the O-rings on these figures are very, very small. They're not very hardcore, and the hook that they used, they didn't close the hook completely. So what I've been finding on all of my MEGO figures is that when I try and raise the arm, I can't raise, it gets impeded by that hook, and then it kind of wants to fall out. It doesn't want to follow the track of the shoulder joint very well. And a lot of the times what will happen is as you bring the shoulder out, the metal pin will then get caught in the hole that goes into the chest cavity, and then that causes the arm to malfunction. So this is one critique I have about the figure, is that they should close these hooks a little bit better, and I think that they need to round this off slightly so that it transitions out and to the forward better. It just has a tendency to get stuck on the shoulder, and then it goes all floppy like so. So that's my critique. So the neck on these new MEGOs are different too. So instead, the old MEGOs, the head used to peg into the body. Now the body pegs into the head, which makes it a little bit different. The feel of the plastic on the head is a little bit harder on the plastic, but the head does rotate, obviously, all the way around, no up or down. And depending on the figure and the skin color between the figure and the body can be slightly different. Taking a look at the arm articulation, we see that it articulates at the elbow, and we look at the hands will fan out and fan in, and they also have a rotation. It's a little tight, but it's there. And the sculpting on the hands are very, very nice on all the new hands. Very good, but they definitely have a softer feel to the plastic, which allows you to grab the accessories without little fear of breaking the fingers off the figure. It's the standard MEGO waist, type 2, that's on there. It looks very, very similar to the original. Kind of flares out a little bit at the hips, but that's to be expected with a MEGO figure. MEGO has moved the manufacturing stamp from the back of the head, but now onto the body. So we see that there's a trademark, a name of David Lee, made in China. a whole bunch of numbers and letters, and then a MEGO Corporation logo. Moving down the body, taking a look at the knees, it's your standard MEGO style knee that articulates forward and back. Has a stop on it, and it's pinned with plastic pegs. So now getting down to the bottom of the figure, we see the feet, and again, they're pegged on. They did a nice job sculpting the toes. They actually sculpted in toenails. So there are the feet and the feet articulation, which is basically they just kind of rock up and down. That's it. So I had to confess a little bit of movie making magic. Those were not Action Jackson's feet I showed you in the last shot. Those are actually Jimi Hendrix feet. And the problem is that the boots that the new Action Jackson have are, I have yet to be able to get them off his feet. This causes a problem, I think, because if you were to try and change his outfit out, which is what Action Jackson line was all about, was using different outfits to turn him into different characters, you don't have the ability with the 2018 Action Jackson. So if you're a vintage collector like myself and you have spare outfits that you've accumulated over time, you're going to find that using them on a 2018 MEGO Action Jackson isn't probably going to be something that you can do unless you cut the new boots off, which, heck, you know, it's your toy, you do what you want with it, but I probably wouldn't do that. So there you have it, the 2018 re-release of MEGO Action Jackson. So if you haven't seen my previous Action Jackson videos, I've reviewed the Action Jackson figure, and I've reviewed, I believe, 6 of the 18 total outfits. I plan on getting back to that line and showing off the rest of those outfits. I still need a few more to go, but I do have all of the adventure outfits. I'm just missing a few of the sports outfits, so keep an eye out for those videos coming very soon. So what's up with Action Jackson? Why is Action Jackson in the 2018 re-release of MEGO? And I think that has to do with the fact that MEGO is fondly remembered for its World's Greatest Superheroes line. Bar none, that's the line everybody remembers. Action Jackson is the precursor to the World's Greatest Superheroes line. Action Jackson came first. Proof of concept, basically, that an 8-inch scale figure would sell, which they did. Unfortunately, Action Jackson did not stand the test of time, and many modern collectors would not recognize Action Jackson. They'd walk down the Target aisle, they're going to see this figure, and they're going to say, what the heck is that? Is that Elvis? Is that Grandpa Munster? Who the hell is that guy? That's a little bit of a problem. Now, if you're a MEGO person like myself, you're going to instantly recognize Action Jackson and say, hey, that's Action Jackson, that's pretty cool. But I'm saying for the casual collector, the person that's just walking down the store shelves, there's probably not going to be a connect with Action Jackson unless maybe you had one when you were a kid. And I'd have to say that those numbers are probably not as great as somebody that had a Batman or a Superman or a Spider-Man. So that being said, it's interesting that he was put into the first wave. I'm happy they did, don't get me wrong. I like the figure, I really do. I think the figure is awesome. I think it's neat that in their initial first wave that they do a throwback to their first figure. Very, very cool. You know, with all the other offerings that they have, is he as exciting as the Dracula figure? No. Is he as exciting as the Star Trek stuff? No, probably not. The Star Trek stuff is pretty exciting, especially some of the figures that we have not yet been able to accumulate with a MEGO logo on it, I should say. So, yeah, he's a great figure, and don't get me wrong, I think everybody should have one in their collection. Compared to the original vintage one, I'd have to say there is really little difference. So if you wanted to spend $15 to get a mint on card Action Jackson versus maybe paying $100 to get a mint in box Action Jackson, I'd say that's the route to go. Maybe you should do that. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. So leave your thoughts on Action Jacksons down below in the comments section. I'd like to thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to catch my latest uploads. I'd like to thank all my new subscribers for coming on board. I'd like to thank all my old subscribers for sticking around with me, even though I only throw videos out, well, when I have a chance. I'm trying to get a little bit better at it. Hopefully, stick with me. I'm going to get better with it. So, this has been John Wild again. Thank you very much. And until next time, Action Jackson is his name.